It was New Year's Eve, and my friends and I decided to celebrate in an old, abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. The place had a creepy reputation, but we were young and seeking an adventure. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the atmosphere grew heavy. We were dancing and laughing, trying to shake off the feeling that we were being watched. The wind outside howled like a banshee, rattling the windows as if the mansion itself was alive. When the clock finally struck 12, that's when things took a sinister turn. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. The air turned icy cold, and a voice echoed through the halls, whispering words we couldn't quite make out. We dismissed it as a prank, blaming each other for trying to spook the group. But as we explored the mansion, we stumbled upon a room that sent shivers down our spines. Old, dusty photographs lined the walls, each one featuring a different group of people, all wearing clothes from a bygone era. The unsettling part? The faces seemed to follow us with their hollow eyes. As we made our way back to the main hall, we heard footsteps echoing into empty corridors. Panic sets in as we realized we were alone with whatever unseen presence lurked in the shadows. Then, the temperature plummeted, and the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Trapped inside, we frantically searched for an exit. That's when we saw them, apparitions of people from the photographs, staring at us with twisted, contorted faces. Terrified, we huddled together, hoping it was all just a hallucination. But the air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the room seemed to pulse with a malevolent force. We felt a cold hand on our shoulders, and a voice whispered in our ears, counting down to midnight. When the clock struck 12 again, the spirits vanished, leaving us in stunned silence. The door swung open, and we ran out of that mansion like our lives depended on it. To this day, I can't explain what happened that New Year's Eve. Was it a collective hallucination, or did we inadvertently stumble upon a portal to a world beyond our understanding? One thing's for sure, New Year's Eve will never be the same for any of us who survived that night. It was New Year's Eve in a remote Norwegian village, nestled deep in the Arctic Circle. I was there, documenting the traditional polar mork, a 13-day celebration of darkness and solitude. Picture swirling snowstorms, endless night, and a few scattered cabins lit by kerosene lamps. The perfect escape from the glitzy, crowded New Year's I usually endured. Now, the villagers told me about the Midnight Solvan, a creature born from the frozen whispers of the night. They wouldn't say much, just mumbled warnings about staying indoors after the clock struck 12. Curiosity, you see, is a fickle beast, especially when fueled by an empty flask and a crackling fireplace. So, as the aurora borealis danced across the black canvas of the sky, I ventured out. The moon was a sliver of bone, the air so cold it bit through my layers like hungry teeth. Just as the clock tower chimed 11, I stepped onto the frozen lake, its surface like black glass reflecting the dancing lights above. That's when I heard it. A low rasping hum, like ice groaning under its own weight. It vibrated in my bones, sending shivers down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. The aurora flickered, casting monstrous shadows that stretched and slithered across the eyes. Panic snagged at my throat, but I pushed it down, telling myself it was just the wind playing tricks. Then a crack. A spiderweb of fissures splintering out from where I stood. My heart hammered against my ribs, and I stumbled back, the eyes groaning in protest. The crack widened, forming a jagged maw and a black mirror, and from its depths something arose. It wasn't a monster of flesh and bone. No, it was pure darkness, coalescing into a humanoid shape with shimmering edges, tendrils of icy mist writhing around it. Its eyes, oh, those eyes, were twin pools of frozen night, bottomless and filled with an ancient hunger. I screamed, a ragged, desperate cry swallowed by the vast emptiness. The midnight solvent reached for me, its touch promising an eternity trapped in its frozen embrace. The ice beneath my feet gave way, and I plunged into the icy depths, the creature's laughter echoing in the hollow night. Now, as I tell you this, huddled by a dwindling fire in my cabin, I'm not sure I'm truly here. The wind whispers strange things. The shadows dance with unsettling life of their own. Maybe the midnight solvent claimed me after all, trapped my soul in its icy domain. So, as you raise your glasses and cheer for the new year, remember this story. Remember the darkness that lurks beneath the surface, the shadows that dance in the corners of your eyes. And if you ever find yourself in a frozen village on New Year's Eve, stay indoors after midnight. Trust me, some traditions are best left undisturbed. It was a few years back, and my friends and I decided to kick off the new year with a road trip to a remote cabin in the mountains. The isolation appealed to us, thinking it would be the perfect way to escape the typical New Year's chaos. As the clock approached midnight, we found ourselves in the heart of a snowstorm. The wind howled like a tortured soul, and the snowfall was so thick it felt like the universe itself was closing in on us. We reached the cabin, a rustic hideaway surrounded by towering pines, hoping for a cozy celebration despite the ominous weather. Inside, the atmosphere was warm, but a strange sense of foreboding lingered. We brushed it off, blaming it on the remote location and the storm outside. As the clock struck midnight, we raised our glasses, toasting to a year of new beginnings. That's when the power went out. Darkness engulfed us, and the only illumination came from the flickering candles we had scattered around. In that moment, we heard a faint, haunting melody, like an old music box playing in the distance. We searched the cabin, convinced it was some forgotten relic, but the sound seemed to follow us, echoing through the halls. As we gathered in the living room, the temperature dropped, and our breaths turned to mist in the frigid air. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on shapes that seemed almost human. Fear gnawed us, but we dismissed it as mere imagination in the face of the storm's intensity. Then the cabin creaked and groaned, as if it had a life of its own. We felt a presence in the room, an unseen entity watching our every move. The melody intensified, becoming more dissonant, more unsettling. We clung to each other, realizing that whatever was happening wasn't just a figment of our imagination. Suddenly, the music stopped, and an eerie silence descended upon us. That's when we heard a voice, a raspy whisper, counting down the seconds to the new year. It wasn't any of us. It was something else. Something that had invaded our celebration. When the countdown reaches 0, the room plunged into total darkness. Panic set in as we fumbled for flashlights, desperately trying to make sense of the situation. And then, in a flash of blinding light, we saw them. Apparitions, figures from another time, staring at us with hollow eyes. As quickly as they appeared, the spirits vanished. The power returned, and the cabin felt eerily normal again. But the memory of that New Year's Eve lingers, haunting my every celebration. I can't shake the feeling that we crossed paths with something beyond our understanding, a chilling entity that welcomed the new year in its own malevolent way.